Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the weekend prep or review going into the week starting November 3rd. And so we'll just be walking through everything and just kind of just prepping for the week, really. So first thing I wanted to call out is so I'm exploring this I think it's new platform for options flow called bullflow.io. And so the reason that I've kind of been drawn to it is the visuals and so I'll kind of quickly walk through that. I'm still a big fan of Cheddarflow because of the dark pool levels, and it's really easy to use and very simple UX. Also, this is a new platform. It seems a little bit buggy, but I think like the visuals are pretty good. I think for a while I'll probably just be paying for both until I figure out which one I like more. I think Bullflow doesn't have dark pools and Cheddarflow does, and so like I would probably still be looking at Cheddarflow for the dark pools. But yeah, just for my trading strategy, I'm always trying to find key levels, but also more context and narrative as to why that level and what else could be happening there. And so, what I like about what's available here in this platform is they have like you can get the price chart and then you can get this like gamma exposure view. And I think Cheddarflow is working on one as well, but I don't think they have one overlaid on the chart like this. And so this is super interesting for me. And I can kind of compare this back to my trading view charts. But the theory around kind of this gamma exposure is the market makers for options, they don't want to lose money. And so they would essentially be hedging at these levels because they have a lot of exposure for options at those levels. And so that in the hedging, they would either be buying or selling the actual stock or ETF or whatever. And so the idea is that, if there's positive gamma, they would want to basically keep the price as stable around those levels as possible. And so, they would be selling spikes and buying dips, more or less, in theory. And if it's negative gamma, then they would be doing the opposite of there'd be more volatility here. And so they would be either selling flushes or buying spikes, right? So that's the theory. And so for me, I'm gonna kind of start using this a bit more and just kind of do some forward testing with it and just seeing if it offers just a bit more clarity on key levels and things like that. So kind of interesting for me. Um, like when I look at the SPY here and I look at the 682, there's a lot of positive gamma. So for me, there's a lot of potential for price to kind of hang around here or maybe even bounce between these two levels because it's positive. Um, and so that's kind of interesting. When I look at dark pool levels for SPY on Friday, 682 does show up. So there was almost a billion transacted there, about 700 million. But then we also had the 680, which was 1.1 billion transacted there, which is kind of near the lows and kind of near. So basically the low and a little bit higher. Um, and so it's interesting because the 680 does show up. There's a bunch of negative gamma here, and then we have a lot of positive gamma. So, I guess depending on if I use the dark pools or this gamma stuff, like the 682 and the 680 would be on my radar in theory. But I like how the gamma kind of gives you more levels to pay attention to. So we'll see. I'm not really married to each one. Like I'm just always looking for additional confluence at levels and things like that. So yeah, this is interesting on the SPY. So we'll be kind of paying attention to that. Um, and then on the Qs, kind of similar situation. So it looks like we want to kind of peg ourselves here. If we look at the Qs, if there was anything big traded around here, so half a million, 629, 626. 629 is where we are. 626, there's actually nothing here. So that's interesting. So like it's kind of a gap in I guess the exposure of options here is a little bit positive. And so, like is that support or what? Like that's kind of interesting for me. Um so anyways, so I'll be kind of paying attention to this a little bit more and kind of playing around with it. Other interesting thing on this platform that really brought me to it was the net premium. And so as more of a day trader scalper, I'd like to kind of see what the near term trend is, which you can't really get this in Cheddar Flow, not that I've seen anyways. But you can kind of see the call premium and net put premium, so people who are bullish versus bearish, right? And looks like we're more bullish, less bearish. Price is going up. We've kind of going up and down, and then now people are getting more bearish, and we're kind of at equilibrium between calls and puts, or bulls and bears. So that's kind of interesting. So maybe there's more sideways action for the Qs coming. And so that's kind of an interesting thing that brought me to this platform. So I thought that was cool. Other really cool thing is this heat map. Um, and so I really like this. Like, I try to do this type of analysis with cheddar flow when you're just looking at, um, you're kind of looking at all the different time frames and expiry time frames, which I think that's a great filter. I don't know if that exists yet in this other platform. Um, so it's pretty cool, but the visual is amazing. It looks like maybe I don't have all those filters. So I don't know. For me, I'm still going to be exploring both, but it's interesting here, like at the 620 all the way, through June. There's a lot of people who are betting we're going to be below this price by sometime in the future. So there's some, 620 seems to be at an interesting level. 13 million right in March below 570, so that's pretty crazy. 12 million above 640. So like pretty equal opposite bets there. I think that's pretty interesting. So yeah, like this is I'll be using this. I'm just new to the platform. I'm not affiliated. I'm not selling this. I'm just showing like, hey, I'm going to be walking through and using something different as I walk through all this stuff. But yeah, just we'll be kind of playing around with that. I guess as far as walking through all the reviews for this week, so I did my kind of weekly prompts across Grok, GPT, and Claude. And so it's interesting when you look at last week versus this week. NQ still neutral bullish. That's fine. ES still bullish. Gold still bearish going into next week. Nothing really changes there from Grok. And so this is like X and Reddit and everything else. Um, I mean, I think they all look at the same sources, but I guess how they interpret it is different. Interesting on GPT. NQ is a little bit more bullish, it looks like, but still cautiously bullish on ES, but bearish on gold. So there you go. And then Claude, bullish on NQ, a little bit less bullish on ES, and it went bearish on gold. So that's kind of interesting for me. So what changed for me is gold is everybody's sentiment is bearish, and so if everybody thinks it's going down, right, on social media and stuff, then does it go up? Like that's my thinking. Maybe it goes down. Maybe we want it to go down, but it's down like 10, 12% already pretty quickly. So that's kind of interesting. Keep that in mind. I would say for ES, kind of the same, maybe a little bit less bullish. We had two bullish and one neutral. Now we have two neutral bullish and one bullish. So we'll see. Qs are more bullish. Um, it was more neutral last week. So, I think I'll just kind of see how things look in the morning with news and everything. But I think that's kind of interesting. But when there's consensus on something, that makes me wonder, do we follow that, or is there a play on the other side? So there you go. So that's kind of interesting. Take a, that's like a grain of salt situation. Um, And then I guess for things that are coming up for next week, so we got this manufacturing PMI. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's private company or not. And so we'll just see if that's still on. Maybe it is. We got some Fed speakers, ADP employment change. So that's private company. We should get that numbers. So that'll give us some insight into employments and jobs and stuff, which is good. I don't know about the PMI flash. We'll see if that sticks. Fed speakers, more Fed speakers, sentiments, tariff deadline for China. I guess that's a big deal. But I think we made a deal. Everybody's happy. Um, so yeah, nothing too crazy. I don't know that anything earnings wise for next week. Let's see. Oh shit, Palantir. There you go. Monday Palantir. So that is something to look forward to. That is happening after hours. So that is definitely something to pay attention to there. Mark that. Um, AMD, that's a big deal. Spotify, Uber, shit, Shopify, okay. Tuesday will be good. Um, Qualcomm. I think Qualcomm had something where they had a competitor with NVIDIA chips or something, so that would be a big deal. ARM, yeah. Hood, DoorDash, maybe. Robinhood, for sure. Airbnb, perhaps. Yeah. And then Friday, nothing sticks out to me. So yeah, definitely Monday, Palantir, AMD, Shopify, Uber, Spotify. So Tuesday will be a big deal. I think Wednesday, Qualcomm and Hood could have some influence in NQ. Um, yeah, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it seems like there'll be some action. So that'll be good. All right, so let's look at. I guess I'm just used to using this, so we'll look at the flow. We'll look at the flow here. So on the Qs on Friday, it looks like it was more bullish for anything expiring in the last 2 weeks. Um, more bullish on the 1 week, so that's interesting. SPY more bearish, expiring within a week, so that's interesting. And in gold, more bullish, expiring within the week. Um, So that's interesting. So a sentiment on social is bearish on gold, but then options are bullish, and it's bullish all the way out. So there could be some interesting contrarian situation happening there. I think Qs are bullish, which is aligning with the sentiment, and then SPY is more bearish, which is kind of counter to sentiment. So it's kind of interesting. I guess take that with a grain of salt. We were kind of looking at this already, but you look at the cues for expiry. Well, these are already expired, so they're all bearish. But for Monday, more bullish, kind of above 630. I don't actually know. I wish this would tell me what the current price is here, but we could find that out pretty quickly. So current price is 629. Yeah, so current price is 629. So on Monday, there's more bets that will be much higher, up to 635, which is interesting. Um, some people think we'll be below that, so they're probably just short. And these people are long, which is fine. And then I think the further out you get, it feels like it's a little bit more. Well, it's like a lot more people are betting higher back out in November, which is interesting. So, anyways, like I said, this is new, like a new chart for me. So I'll just be looking, trying to make more determinations about it. But it's interesting across like 630. There's a lot of people who are just at different expiries think we're going to be above that. Um, yeah, so we'll be playing with this a bit more on the SPY. Where are we on the SPY? So 682. So that's where we're currently at. It's interesting here so expiring on November 7th, it's just a lot more people think we're going to go lower here, and even like betting way down here. By November 14th, 20 million net below 650 in 2 weeks from now. Millions here, 2 million, 9 million, 5 million by mid-December below 660. So that's super interesting. I mean, the opposite is true on December 19th. Also, you got 2 million, but there are millions here. This is like 15, right? 15, 16, 17 million. I mean, there's 5 million here above. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting. 13 million? Shit. By January to be above 718? That's nuts. And then below 710, these people are just short. So that's interesting. So, anyways, I'm still working on interpreting this better, but I just think it's kind of really interesting to look at and think about. So there is that. I think I will be looking at this. Well, I guess we can actually look at. Let's look at SPY here. Let's look at the net premium just to get a view of sentiment going into next week. If we do the last 7 days. So this is interesting for me, right? Like you see the net put premium has really increased. So more people are just looking for bearish action. And we've been kind of like when it crossed over, like we did start falling the price a little bit. So that's interesting, right? Um, hmm. So that is super interesting. I think when we compare that with SPY, I mean, not SPY, with the Qs, like the Qs are kind of at equilibrium. So, I guess if you were going to be bullish something, probably NQs probably have a better chance just because these are kind of equal at this point, and it was kind of the you know the bulls were kind of weakening here. So that's interesting. And then for gold, yeah, and so this is another thing with this platform. It does take a little bit for it to load. I mean, gold's kind of everywhere. Um, yeah, it's a little bit. They're kind of converging a little bit, so it doesn't really tell you much. But I mean, that's just kind of interesting from a kind of trend of flow perspective. But I think there's something really clear. Not, yeah, I mean, there's something pretty pronounced happening in SPY with the puts. So that is something I will keep in mind going into next week. Like if there was a short to look on one of the three, maybe it is on SPY than anything else. Um, so that is cool. If we look at just the chart for SPYs and then we add the cool little gamma thing that they have, which I think we were looking at already. So yeah, I mean, I guess anything below 680s, I guess, like 681, 680s. And then if we can get below the 680, like 681, 680, then it's like, hey, maybe there's a lot more volatility to the downside for sure. I think what's different here than what's on the Qs is that I guess we want to keep price around here, but there could be volatility here to the upside and volatility here to the downside. So that's interesting. Um, and then on gold, so I guess here it's like volatility land and a little bit of either way it goes. I guess we would be expecting more stability in price action around here. Just if you're going off the theory of what these gamma exposure levels mean. Um, so maybe we just push up and then we're just kind of bouncing around, or push down and then we're just bouncing around. But this gap, maybe there's more flush back to here and there's support and it kind of bounces around. So that's interesting. So I'll just be keeping that in mind. This is just me kind of thinking out loud at this point. Um, hmm. So I guess we'll look at the charts and then we'll just kind of see what things look like in the morning. But I feel like maybe SPY has the cleanest potential for a short if you're looking for it, just based on what I'm seeing in the flow. Cheddar Flow had it bearish. Yeah, Cheddar Flow has the SPY bearish. You saw on the net premium chart that there's much more put flow outpacing the call flow, which is very interesting. And then on heat map, heat map. See, on the heat map, I think it's super interesting. I'm still trying to figure out how to best draw conclusions from it. But it looks like for the week going into for next week expiry, just a lot more bearish bets, and I think that is kind of the same for what's happening in the flow that we're seeing, although it is a pretty big range. So I think there's something here as far as potential levels to kind of pay attention to. And if we look at the SPY chart here with the gamma levels, yeah, so platform's a bit slow. There you go. So it's interesting. Like, I guess if we go up, it's more of like this tells, in theory, this would say, well, price would kind of try to stick to these levels, right? And so there's not really, like you couldn't expect big pushes up potentially, but down here, if it gets below, you would expect some volatility down. Um, so maybe there's cleaner trades in SPY next week. So that's kind of what I think based on what I'm looking. But again, still learning about this platform and all that. So pretty interesting. I guess we can kind of walk into all the things here. So I guess for the just the price action, right? Um, yeah. So on the Qs had that flush, pushed up, closed red, kind of in the middle of that. Well, not in the lower third of that candle, but it's still holding up. Like it didn't fall over or anything. So we'll see. Interesting for the SPY is we did break the low and we closed this gap here. And so now it's like, are people trapped? Are they happy? I mean, I think they're happy the gap was closed if you were a bear, because then you got that. But then it becomes, what do we do from here? So I think the SPY did open the door for more lower because it did break the low type of thing. But I think there's probably room to be surprised at this 6,840, right, where this gap closed. So you just have to kind of watch that. Russell, I mean, maybe there's going to be a rotation back into the Russell because now it's like, oh, it's pushed down enough. Let's push this up to highs and let's keep everything sideways on the NQ and the SPY. We do have some nice earnings next week, so we'll just see if that shakes anything. Um, Dow, we did break the low, but definitely pushed back up. Kind of looking like fish pins, like a fishbone type stuff here. So when I see this intraday, it's like they're really trying, but then it usually kind of falls over. So we'll see if that plays out on the daily. Interesting, VIX is kind of picking up a little bit. So I don't know what's happening there, but a little bit of fear. Um, Dollar looks like we're coming back. So that's interesting. So does treasury yields. Gold, everybody is thinks it's going to go down, but people are putting money on it going up. Um, I mean, because we broke the high, holding up in the middle of the candle, like there is room to go up here. I don't know that we get back to highs, but I think here, those 49, 41.90s, like that is, I would be very happy to go short there. But we'll see. I mean, I'm always happy to take a short, but let's see if this keeps grinding up or not. And then so we'll look at the super SPY here. Oh, yes, I want to save you. Super SPY. All right, so Broadcom, we made highs, pulled back, pulling back more, so that's not necessarily good. Berkshire, been falling off, I guess, from people having succession worries. And so it looks like we're kind of pausing there. JP Morgan, I was really expecting us to break that low and it just did not. That's pretty cool. Up we go. LOY, good earnings, and up we go. Broke that resistance. So let's see. So, I mean, that looks strong for the SPY. Visa, we're just hanging out. And we had earnings. So I don't know what earnings happened there, but we were just hanging out. Netflix falling over, not quite to 1,000, but let's see if we get there. Costco just hanging out at support, and the SPY is the SPY. Close almost, yeah, basically almost close that gap. So let's see what it does. So there you go. And then I think for gold, let's look at gold here really quick. Is this my gold compare? Yeah, and so for gold, still learning a bit about these other things. I've recently transitioned to adding gold to what I trade, but I'm trying to learn more about the things that move around it. And so here, this iShare bond stuff. So down would be bullish for GC, and up would be bearish. So it looks like we were kind of, well, shit. We're down. We're kind of grinding back up. Maybe this is like a wedge thing and we're going to break out. Not sure. But definitely keeping an eye on that. The dollar, which is kind of a repeat on the other charts, but that's always just good to watch. So broader commodities. So it looks like broader commodities is down. So gold going up is kind of on its own. So it's not moving with broader things that are happening. Bitcoin, it's holding up. I think gold is trading better than Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is getting up there. So we'll just see if anything interesting happens there. And then I guess side by side for futures and the interesting side by side for futures and the ETF. Futures we did break that high, ETF barely, but not quite. But I still see this gap to close here, so I'll be watching that and just seeing how we do. Maybe I'll just watch this so I don't forget. I'm gonna lock you. Yeah, so that's something. Maybe we close that gap, which would kind of coincide with this level, more or less. I think. So we will see. I want the short and gold. I don't think it's I want the big short and gold, but I don't think it's there yet. But I'm open to it either way. And I think for this one, yeah, so this one I'll look in the morning. So I'm just trying to have a better comparison of the ETF and the futures every day. So we have like nice little gaps here on the Qs. So if we did want to go down on the ES, yeah, we kind of close that gap, another gap, which is fine. And then we kind of have that comparison there. So this is me. I don't think I'll review this for every video, but just kind of looking at that. Yeah. So as far as trading, I will probably make a separate video for this, but I'm always trying to consolidate all the indicators and stuff that I look at. And so I made this gradient CVD indicator, which I think is pretty cool. It kind of gives me context of price action and how 15 and 60 CVD cumulative volume delta is moving. And so the idea is that if price and volume are moving in the same direction or volume delta, then you'd want to play that direction. Um, and so like here, this is interesting where you get the VWAP. VWAP is going from green to transitioning to red. Also at the same time, the 15 CVD is breaking into red. So it's like, okay, you can probably start joining short here if you wanted to, or if you wanted to wait for it to bounce back up into VWAP to go down, which it kind of did. Maybe you would have got stopped out on this big spike up, right? Because it did kind of test VWAP on regular trading hours and also VWAP on the electronic trading hours. And then it fell back over and maybe you get back in, right? And in here, because it starts turning green again, maybe you're like, well, let's move our stop to be tight because you don't want to get pushed out. But then I think as you see price break below here, you see like selling imbalance and then it turns really deep red. And it's like, okay, well, sellers are winning. So this is where you hang on to it. So that's pretty cool. And then you kind of see, oh, we're going green, you stop, and now you're falling back over and all that. So I'll be using this. That doesn't really change too much of how I trade, but it just helps me have more context of how volume is progressing. Before it was just simply green or red based on if the CVD was above or below zero, and so this just gives me more context and strength of the move. Yeah, so I think it's pretty cool, and I'll just see how things look pre-market tomorrow, or I guess whenever Monday is, and then we'll just kind of walk through it. So yeah, I guess to play everything back, I think the interesting thing for me that's happening in SPY right now is definitely what I saw here, and how things kind of are looking for the short, and people are really piling in to the puts there. So I guess if you were looking for a short to hang on to, maybe SPY could be the one. So yeah, we shall see. I just see how Monday looks, and then we'll just take it from there. Cool. Well, thanks for hanging out. I know this was a little bit longer, just kind of going through some things, and then yeah, we'll just see how we go. All right. Thanks for your time. Bye.